Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. I'm your host, Phil Friedrich, and today I am honored to have Kelley Tyan with me. Kelley is the author of Addicted to the Climb. She also has a podcast called Addicted to the Climb, so go check those out. And then her newest book is called The One Prayer. And so, really excited to highlight her story. And I think one of the things you're going to hear throughout her story is it's okay to have a direction, pivot your direction, because sometimes you'll find more meaning in the new direction that you go. So Kelley, thanks so much for being on today.
Thank you so much for having me. Very honored to be here.
Well, to start your story at a very young age, you got into some modeling. So talk about being a kiddo and getting into a little bit of modeling.
Well, you did do your research, let me tell you. I did. I was not an athlete, to say the least, at all. I tried. I tried to play softball as a little girl, but I was picking daisies in the fields. And my mom's like, okay, what are we going to do with her? So I I needed some manners, I guess you could say, as a little girl. So my mom said, let's do modeling school. At least she can learn how to set a table. So I did. I ended up doing modeling. I loved magazines when I was little, and I just took to wanting to learn how to walk and just present myself in high heels. And so it was part of my past, which really helped shape who I am today, to be honest.
Yeah. Now, as you progress throughout your younger years, you and your mom develop a very strong relationship. So talk a little bit about, the connection that you guys had and just growing up and having a close relationship with a mom and maybe some, either lessons or morals that you learned from that.
Oh, my favorite thing to talk about, my mom. I was an only child, born to the best parents in the world. They modeled such love to me every single day and just showed me that it was okay to be me
Mm,
through the thick and thin of things. And we had a strong bond, strong relationship. She really made that happen for us. And she had a lot of faith
mm.
as um, I think I was around 10 years old, my mom found Jesus. And so
Yeah.
my world kind of changed, and she was very faithful, and she just believed in building a strong family for the three of us. And so it was a beautiful relationship. And I guess what I can say about that is if you are a parent, having your 2 ears is God made us that way for a reason to listen to our children. My mom never condemned me. She never
Mm,
judged me for being a kid and doing
yeah.
dumb things. She listened and she sat with me and she taught me the right way instead of saying, "Well, don't do that." She never
Mm,
really pointed her finger at me, and I respected that so much, especially as I became a mother and realize that when you have children, it's not about pointing the finger in their face and making sure they know the wrong they're doing. It's teaching them that there's a better way. You can have a better result if you do it this way. Why don't you try that instead? So she was an amazing person, and we had just the most beautiful relationship ever. And I lost her 6 years ago, but learned so much from her and so thankful for all of it.
Yes. Now, for you, as you progress through school, your first career that you go into is in education. You become a teacher. So, talk a little bit about, what originally drew you to that, and then I think it was about 5 years you spent in the role of a teacher.
Yes, I did. I always wanted to be a teacher. I thought that's what I was going to do from when I was a little girl, probably because my mom was in the school system
Mm,
and I followed her. And
yeah.
so I did, I became a teacher, but I realized pretty quickly that it just wasn't for me. I loved my students. I worked in inner city schools with children with no parents and a lot of
Yeah.
damaged, self-esteems and all of it. So I took to the students. However, being a teacher myself was not fulfilling, and I knew there was more for me. I was, again, an only child. I was super independent. I always wanted to try new things. Nothing could hold me back. And so I did try a lot of different things to find my place in life, as most of us have.
Yeah.
But teaching was a great platform to start on. It was a good stepping stool. I think I'm a coach today, so I still am
Yeah.
teaching some aspects, right?
Yeah.
And but pivoting out of teaching, I found a woman that was in network marketing.
Yeah.
And what happened from that moment just really turned my life upside down because here I was, as you know, if you're a teacher, I didn't go to school for business. I didn't go to school for marketing, communicate, like it was teaching. So I was
Yeah.
in a classroom with students. When I went into this network marketing company called Mary Kay Cosmetics,
Yeah.
I was like, what is going on here? Like these women are killing it. There's no glass ceiling. I can make as much money as I want. Wait a minute. And my eyes were open to sales and communication and selling and making a way for myself.
Yeah.
So that's the transition I went through into network marketing. And then, is where I learned everything about business and
Yeah.
just creating the life I wanted to live. So,
So I want to highlight a couple things there
sure.
because I think somebody listening right now says, but Kelly, I went to school for this and I'm afraid to make a pivot out of it because I already spent, 5 years going to school and I've been in my job 10 years, gosh,
Mhm.
I'm in my 40s. Maybe I should just hang on for another 20 years. And you made the bold choice, right? I mean, once again, you can look back today and say, "Oh, that was a really good choice," but I'm sure there was maybe some different opinions at that time, or maybe even a little bit of uh, wonder in your own mind of like, "Is this the right choice?" I went to school for this, and now I'm pivoting into this whole new world that I don't have a background in. What does that look like? So, talk a little bit about making a bold step and pivoting, but also, confronting those thoughts of, "Yes, this isn't my background, but it doesn't mean I can't be successful."
That's exactly it. I knew I was a risk taker
Yeah.
as a kid, and I didn't have fear of trying something new. I really
Mm.
didn't. I think that's part of the parenting that I had. My mom believed in me. She instilled a deep belief in me, even though it is scary transitioning. It's very scary to say I'm going to try something totally different than what I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life. But
Yeah.
without a risk, there's no reward. So I knew that. And I knew that if I didn't try, I would regret. And
Mm.
I didn't ever want to have a regret. So if you're out there and you're feeling, I don't want to take a chance and I'm scared, listen, how happy are you? You have to evaluate your happiness in the moment of what you're doing compared to if I risk something, what could be my life? What would my life look like if I take a chance on me? So
Yeah.
it's really about, you evaluating how miserable you are. And if you
Yeah.
want to stay, and maybe the money's great where you are, and maybe that's keeping you there, but what could be on the other side? And that's just
Mm.
really my thinking is I don't want to leave this earth without knowing I gave it my all or tried something new that I really wanted to try. And that's my approach.
Yeah. So, 2 things I wanna dive in. One is you've mentioned a couple of times, "Hey, my parents really instilled a confidence and a belief in me."
Mhm.
And I'm not a parent, you are a parent, so, you can share with some of the things you're even doing with your own kids, but I think, something we oftentimes miss is we praise the end result of somebody, right? Like, "Hey, you had a really good game," right? And we don't compliment the acts that got them there, right? Like, "Hey, I saw you working so hard today," or "I saw you practicing," whatever it might be. So talk a little about maybe things your parents did for you or things you're trying to instill and do with your kids to instill that belief and confidence in them, not just in the end result or the accolade that they're achieving.
Yes, I am so not even about the accolade they're trying to achieve. It is about that. It's about, building them up and saying, well, maybe you got to keep going. Like my son right now, he's 17. He's trying out for lacrosse
Mm.
and he's small. I hope he doesn't listen to this, but he's on the smaller side of the
Yeah.
juniors in high school that he's up against,
Yeah.
and he's working out really hard, and that's what we're focusing on. I'm like, "Listen, let's not think about if you make the team. Let's focus right now, what can I do today to get stronger? How
Mm.
am I eating? What am I doing in the gym? Am I pushing myself enough?" Don't worry about the outcome. I was
Yeah.
never one of the chapters in my first book is release the outcome. We can't
Mm.
if that's what we're focused on, that's gonna keep us stuck because sometimes we don't even move if we're worried about our outcomes. And I
Yeah.
feel, part of the joy is found in the journey. I know that's a saying,
Yeah.
but the journey is about becoming stronger along the way
Mm.
towards that outcome? What am I doing? How am I growing? That's the fun part. How am I getting there? How am I pushing myself? And so that's what I do with my children. I'm
Yeah.
always, my daughter's just 2 years out of college and at the beginning of her career in finance. She's like, well, I got to get to that six figures yesterday. Well,
Yeah.
hold on. Like, let's not, you will get there if you're
Yep.
consistent in your efforts, if you're showing up for you, if you're putting in the work and enjoy the ride. The ride is where it's at because that's where you're growing. You're learning, oh my gosh, I did this wrong. I got to fix it. I can do it better now. So
Yeah.
that's what we do in my family. And it's really, again, it is part of how my mom taught me as well.
Yes. Now, on the other side, going into a business such as Mary Kay,
Mm.
it's not as if they gave you a clientele group, right? You didn't have 1,000 accounts that you were just having to go and service or,
Zero.
touch base with. You have to start from really scratch. And for a lot of people, they're afraid of, well, gosh, people are going to say, oh, there's Kelley doing the sales thing, right? Or she's going to force me into buying something, or I'm going to feel guilty if I don't. And at the end of the day, there may be some people that actually feel that way, but the majority of people don't feel that way. So talk a little bit about, walking into something and not worrying about what others are thinking about the opportunity that you're excited about.
Mm. Yeah, you're taking me way back. It is. And of course, when you're in network marketing, I mean, I was part of three really great companies of network marketing. I loved it. And I started at zero every single time.
Yeah.
That was the exciting part for me
Mm,
personally. I loved the product and I knew it would make women feel beautiful. So
mm,
that was my focus. It wasn't about me. It was really
yeah.
about if you love what you're doing, if you love the product and you know it's going to help someone else, then why are you staying silent? Why are you scared? It's your scarcity is making that woman that's next to you in CVS, she might never find the right lipstick if you don't tell her about you and what you have to offer. And that's how
Yeah.
I looked at it. I didn't want to keep it to myself. And I would go to the mall and just make it a point to spend 3 hours walking up and down and telling women about my product. First of all, because I needed sales. I needed but I loved what I was doing so much, and I thought, I don't want to keep this to myself. I need to share this with the world. I could change a woman's, I could elevate her self-esteem. I could bring confidence into her with a new
Yeah.
eyeshadow. So why not? And it's really
Yeah.
about betting on yourself and just going for it.
Absolutely. I love it. Now, as life has it, every once in a while we get a curveball thrown in, and a curveball for you was breast cancer that, once again, you didn't wake up thinking, oh, that's going to happen to me, but it does. So, talk a little bit about that season of life. And I mean, maybe how your faith, or maybe that's a time where faith became more important to you, but really how that played or was impactful in your situation there.
Mm. Well, so a few months before I was opening my first gym. I was opening a fitness business, and that was the goal. I had about a 3-month window to get things into place, and I was ready. I was promoting my business, getting all the neighborhood women to take my
Yeah.
first classes. And a couple of months before the doors opened, I was driving with my baby in the back seat. He was about 2, I think. Anyway, it was 2008 and I had the call from my doctor, Kelley, you have cancer. Never in 1 million years, here I was, the fitness girl, getting ready to open this business to help women get fit and healthy. And I got the call, and it was devastating, to say the least. I don't know if you've ever heard the words or had somebody in your family. I'm sure you know people that have gone through cancer, but it's devastating and it's very unexpected for anybody. Never mind
Mhm.
just me trying to think I'm the fitness woman. It's for anybody. And I had a rock bottom moment. It was, it stripped me. It brought me
Mm,
to my knees. I didn't know if I could go on with this fitness business. I was, teetering in my negativity, in my pity party just for a minute until I finally got a grip and said, what am I doing? I'm making a choice right now. If
mm,
I'm going to climb this mountain, that is how addicted to the climb really came into play. I said, I'm
yeah.
going to climb this mountain and I'm going to show others that they can do it too with courage and
Yeah.
strength and faith. Because if I can do it, they can too. And that's
Yeah.
really what I did. I started climbing my way up. I started telling myself I'm going to be okay. I started kicking the fear right in its face because it was trying to knock me down and knock me out. I mean, there were moments I'd wake up sweating
Mm.
in bed because I was terrified to face my children if they told me that I wasn't going to make it.
Yeah.
Or, there was moments I was just so fearful that I was having panic attacks. But I knew that I had a greater calling on my life, and I knew I had to show up for myself and my children and my husband, and I didn't want to go down without kicking and screaming. And I said, I'm going to fight this. I'm going to tell cancer that you might have been my diagnosis, but you're not going to be the story. And
Mm.
I'm going to be this fitness instructor. I'm going to run my business. And
Yeah.
then when I look back, as you say, part of your show, and it's amazing when I look back, God had a plan, because
Mm.
if I didn't have that boot camp opening, I really don't know if I would have made it, because I had those women, I had a community showing up
Mm.
at 5 a.m. for me being
Yeah.
the instructor. Yet I was, it was a two-way street here. They were showing up for me, but I was leaning on their strength. I
Mm.
was showing up for them to help me get through my diagnosis. And that's
Yeah.
what kept me going. It was so beautiful the way God really orchestrated this, which I wish he didn't give me he didn't give me the cancer. I'm not saying he did.
Right.
The way it all evolved and the strength I really took to these women just got me through the hardest time, one of the hardest moments in my life. Helps me to climb my way out of that diagnosis and be on top of the mountain.
Yeah. Well, so I want to, dive into that because I think sometimes people hear, oh, I shouldn't be negative or I got to stay positive. And for sure, there's an element of that, right? But there's also the element of not just masking over something, right? There is an element, like
Right.
you said, hey, I had a rock bottom moment, right? There was maybe it was a week, maybe it was a day, maybe it was a few hours. I don't know. But there was a period of time where I did just need to emotionally deal with that and kind of handle that before the launch, could continue. So talk a little bit about the balancing act of like handling the emotions and really working through it, dealing with it, but also not allowing that to be where you stay and, focusing on whatever it is that is going to be the new focal point for you.
I absolutely felt all my emotions, and I
Yeah.
believe we need to. We need to
Yeah.
feel those things. We can't pretend it's not happening, because guess what? It will bite you back right where you don't want it to eventually. If you
Yeah.
don't, that's something my mom taught me, is holding stress in your body. Listeners, please do not talk about it. Make a phone call. Don't be solo on your journey of
Mm.
a trauma or something you're going through that's a diagnosis, because that doesn't do your body any good. It creates stress,
Yeah.
cortisol. I mean, we can get it, it can cause worse. You can be worse off carrying something so stressful in the end than you were if you released it.
Yeah.
So I was taught to talk about my problems, talk about my feelings, and cry it out. I cried it out. Of course I
Yeah.
did. And it feels good to do that. And we have to do that. So then we can move on. But there
Mm.
comes a point, like for me, even after losing my mom, I told you the relationship we had and going through grief and death, it was terrible. There comes a time where you have to make a decision. Am I going to sink, or am I going to swim and get
Yeah.
myself above water? And really, my faith got me through. That's a big part of how I climb my way out of anything that happens in my life. It's faith. And I lean on that and
Mm.
I say, hey, God, here we go. Let's do this. I need to draw on your strength. I don't
Yeah.
have it myself. So that's where my strength really comes from, is
Mm.
really just going right to him in prayer. And that's really how I overcome and become resilient in all the challenges that I've faced.
Absolutely. Now you mentioned it. You were starting the gym, so you had done some fitness competitions, or maybe that comes after the gym. I'm not sure. You can share the order in which this goes, but done some fitness competitions, and then you start running your own class at a local gym or a gym that was opening up in your area. So talk about the inspiration to pivot from being in the world of sales and getting more into the fitness world for you.
So I did do fitness competitions. I am proud to say I'm a four-time national bikini champion,
That's a
which
big deal.
it was a big deal. It was a big deal. It's hysterical, let's be honest. It, but I do want to say I did not do that. I did not want to do the bikini competitions for look at me, like
Mm,
look at me. It was really about stepping into courage for me,
mm,
going through breast cancer to show other women that I that bikini competition, my very first one was the driving force to help me get out of my own way and to
yeah,
give me something to become more courageous and take my mind off what I was going through. So that's why I started that whole competition thing. So it did come a little bit after I opened the fitness business,
yeah,
but it was an amazing experience. And after doing that, I'm very much, as I told you, I love taking a risk. I love a
yeah,
challenge. I want to see what's next. What can I do next? So after, right before COVID happened, I was 11 years into my business, fitness business, and COVID happened. And at the same time, two women came in and bought out my gym and told
yeah,
me you have to go somewhere else. And I was like, wait a minute, I've established this, thousands of women. I mean, you want me to just find somewhere else? And it was devastating. But like I said, 2 months later, COVID happened. And I knew in that time frame, okay, Kelley, what are we doing next? There has to be some kind of pivot. And what happened was Addicted to the Climb was born. It was
yeah.
born out of all the adversity I faced. It was born after being thrown out of the gym. It was born after the cancer diagnosis, and I wanted to the climb is all about the journey
Mm,
and how we climb our way out of these deep, dark places. So I started with a podcast and I wrote my first book. And my book is really just all about my experiences of climbing my way out and how you can too. It's
mm,
really about bouncing back because what other option do we have? Or we're going to sink, as we said, or stay the same, or not get out of our way. And so that's what Addicted to the Climb is really all about. It's helping people just get out of their own way, be the one, pave your way. Let's go, let's climb. And it's about reaching those mountaintops at the same time. It's about winning in the end and moving on to another mountain and seeing that mountaintop. The view is so beautiful at the top, but we need to climb to get there. And it's
yeah.
hard.
It is hard. So when you think about the climbing part, right? The climb, I think the if you think about like a real mountain climb, I was just in Utah and we went hiking through a mountain.
Oh,
And
nice.
there's parts where you're like, this is really hard. Like maybe it would be better if I went down, or like crap, if
Yes.
I keep going up, I actually have to go twice as far down, or whatever it is, right? There's those thoughts that go through your head. But if you're focused on something bigger, right? Hey, and for me, it was the group of guys that I was with, right? There's a few of us that were doing this hike together. And it was like, well, I'm not going to be the only one that doesn't finish the hike, right? So, like, I'll be able to push through it. So, when you
Right.
talk about being addicted to the climb, what is it that people can focus on or have tangible things to get them through those difficult parts of the climb, right? Because you're going to hit it. It's just a matter of when.
You said it. You nailed it on the head. And guess what you said? You said you had people that
Yeah.
you were with. So I say, latch yourself onto the climbers, the ones
Mm,
that you know are going to keep going when you want to quit.
yeah.
Those are the ones that I want to hang with. Those are the circles I want to be in. I want to surround myself with ambitious people that are going places that I know if I'm going to put my sneakers on and start a climb with them, they're not going to say, oh, it's too hard. Let's go back. They're going to
Yeah.
say, let's go. Let's see this mountaintop. So I think that's part of that's the big reason that I mean that's what we all should be doing is surrounding ourselves with the climbers, the people that want to see things and do things and accomplish things and not quit and not
Yeah.
give up so easily. And if you don't have those people, reach out to me, reach out to Phil. It starts somewhere. I remember being alone, Phil.
Mm.
Like I remember I wasn't always like this, you guys. Like I started somewhere too. I was by myself. Oh, I gotta climb by myself. And sometimes I would turn around and go the other way
Yeah.
and go back down the mountain, but I realized doing it alone was really hard. And
Mm.
I got tired of doing things alone. And I saw all these other people doing things together and excelling and succeeding. So I had to find my people, and it takes time. If
Yeah.
you're feeling alone right now, reach out to one person. Start making connections on social media. Maybe you don't know the person yet. Just DM them. Keep going. Don't give up because they don't answer you the first time. But it's
Yeah.
all about establishing a relationship. Take the time if you're feeling alone, and eventually you'll find yourself in a circle with other like-minded people doing it together. And I think that's a huge part of being successful.
I think that's great. Now, I'm gonna play devil's advocate. I'm gonna play someone that's listening right now, and they say, "But Phil, but Kelley, the people I hang out with aren't those people, and I don't want to lose those relationships. They're people that I've been friends with for 20 years. So how does one handle maybe maintaining those relationships, or encouraging them to also maybe pursue this with them, and if they don't want to, then being okay with stepping into a new group of people that maybe are more like-minded."
Well, that's me right now in this
Yeah.
moment. I have my friend group that are 20 years ago, 30 years of friendships, and they're not on the same page as me. And
Yeah.
I guess what I realized was I love them, but those aren't my people that, are going to push me in my business and ask me,
Yeah.
what's this, Kel? So I personally I needed to fuel my own fire somehow, and I needed to be fueled and latch my match onto other people's matches so we could have a big flame together. And that's really how I looked at it. I can keep my friendship, you can keep your friendships, but if you're bored and nothing's happening there, it's okay. Reach out to new people because
Yeah.
why not? You don't know what's on the other side of the risk you're taking. And the risk could be reaching out to a new person that you don't know yet. But if you're happy staying the same, doing the same thing, then do that. That's
Yep.
okay too. You don't have to be like me that, we're all so different. But I know for me, I know I wasn't born average and I don't want to do average things. So if that's you right now and you're fired up right now and your circle's average, no offense, I'm not saying they're bad people. They're
Yep.
great people, but they're not doing above average things that you desperately want to do. Well, that's up to you. Get yourself out there, use your voice, take a chance, bet on yourself and say, I'm going to DM this. You know what I used to do? I used to video message people on Instagram and say,
Yeah.
hey, it's Kelley here. I just love what you're doing. I'd love to be involved. How can I add value to you? What can I do to support you? There you go. And they'd answer me. And
Yeah.
then you become friends and then you start a conversation. That's it. It's very simple. And they might not answer you all the time. I'm not saying it's that's don't
Right.
call Ed Milet. He might not answer you because he's very busy. But there's a lot of people out there that just might be two steps ahead of you. And that's
Yeah.
all you need to push you a little bit more. And that's it.
Absolutely. I love that. Now, you talk about a support group, and you mentioned you're married, and I can only imagine that that's a very important part of, pushing through things, or in someone else's story, right? That may be one of the inhibitors, right? That can happen in relationship dynamics. But talk a little bit about, for you and your husband, kind of the, supporting of each other through tough times or through ambitious goals, and then wanting to pursue new adventures for Kelley.
Yeah. We've been together 20, I don't even know. Over 23 years.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm the one that's like, when you ask, when's your anniversary? He's like, that. I'm like, every day I gotta do the math. I gotta think. Anyway, he's my rock. He's just amazing. It wasn't always easy in the marriage, of course, but being together this long, we realized that you're my priority. We
Mm.
made each other top priority besides our faith, and we're in the climb together. So we support each other. Our communication is it's at an all-time high because we run things by each other. We own an insurance agency
Mm.
as well as what I do. So we are very busy, but it's all about coming together and being the rock for each other, supporting each other and what we want to do, and being open about if we don't agree, talk about it. It's a
Yeah.
lot of communication.
Mm,
That's what makes a marriage great.
yeah. Now, I hear this working mom, spouse, working out, right? Writing a book, having a podcast, and someone listening saying, Kelly, how the heck do you make time for all that, right? How do you prioritize these things? So talk a little bit about, whether it's your schedule, routines, things that you do to make sure that everything gets accomplished as well as it can.
So the number one thing for me is starting my day in prayer and in calmness and with my Bible. I do not negotiate that at all, no matter how busy I am, because my faith comes first. I wouldn't
Mm,
be here without my faith in God and, him opening the doors for me and him just, helping me have clarity in what I'm doing with my purpose in life. So I owe him all my time in the morning. And that's how I start my day. And my workouts are right there, right underneath that. That's so important. So you have to really know, what are my top priorities? Is
yeah.
it faith? Is it family? Is it fitness? I mean, we can't do everything. I don't really know if I believe in balancing everything, because we just can't. I don't
Mm,
find that I can balance. I can create harmony in my life. I like that kind of word better than a balance, because if I'm happy, I'm creating harmony. So I know spending time with God is first. Spending time working out is a very much a top priority, non-negotiable for me, because I know without working out, my mood is
mm,
low and I don't
yeah.
feel good. And then that's, pouring out of to my children, and I'll be
Yeah.
moody with them. So I have to keep my priorities in order. So I guess you have to ask yourself, what are my priorities? And keeping those, I think you only can have 3 at
Mm,
1, 2, and 3, then the rest will, fall into place, but keeping your top 3 priorities as non-negotiables is how I set up my day. But as far as scheduling all the things that I do, I'm not perfect. I do need a little more help with time management. So we all do, I think.
yeah.
But I do make a list, and it's not too long. I 3 to 5 things, and that makes me feel accomplished.
Mm,
What do
yeah.
I have to do today? Record a podcast. Okay, well, that's a priority today. I gotta make sure I don't do anything until I actually do that. How
Yeah.
many phone calls do I have to make? 5 phone calls. I make sure I do the real important things first before the day gets away from me, or
Yeah.
else I will be in chaos.
I love it. So two things I would highlight there, one is the reason I use a term priority is because so frequently, right, people will make the comment, I didn't have time. And I always say, well, you had time, it just wasn't a priority, right? And that's okay. But there's a difference in what you're saying. One is kind of blaming the way the day went. The other one is just owning the fact that it just wasn't that important to me. And it stinks to say that out loud, because sometimes you're saying that about really important things or really great things. But it's like, yes, I would have loved to have done dinner with you, but I didn't have time. It wasn't a priority, right? So I didn't make dinner tonight. I ended up doing whatever else it was. But I think there's a level of ownership that I can take that way, opposed to, making it a blameful stance on the way the day went. And then the
Mhm.
second thing I want to highlight that you said is doing the most important things first. And, I'm a firm believer in, you only have so much like thought and decision making capacity in a day, right?
Mhm.
And the problem is if I start with the things that are either easiest or the least important, is I'm still thinking about the important things that I need to do, right? Like they're
Yep.
still weighing on me, they're still weighing me down, and I still haven't done the most important things of my day. So to me, it's like, well, if I focus on the most important things or my highest priorities first, and I get those done, not only one, did I get the most important things done, but two, I also have freed up brain capacity because I'm not thinking about having to do those really important things that I know need to get done today.
Oh my gosh, that is the key right there, is doing the hardest things first, because you're not going to get to those things. Those are
Right.
going to be the things that trickle on the Monday list, the Tuesday. They're going to be there on Friday. And I
Yeah.
learned that the hard way, because that's what was happening for me. And I said, you know what? I have to make it a point to do, like you said, brain capacity.
Yeah.
We're strongest at certain points in the day. I think most of us are strongest in the morning, with our thoughts. We're alert. We can get things done. We're ready to go by 2 o'clock. If I don't get those hard things done, I'm really not going to do them after
Yeah.
too. You have to know yourself
Yep.
and be aware of that as well. It's
That's
important.
so good.
Mhm.
Now, you also said, hey, the first thing that I do in my day is I start with, praying in my faith walk. And so book number 2 has recently come out. So talk a little bit about the second book, and one, the inspiration behind it, but two, maybe a little snippet of what it's about.
Yes, it's called The One Prayer. And we've just had many miracles in our lives over
Mm.
here, the Tyan household, that I can say is really the inspiration behind it. And I know one prayer could be the one answer to one person's miracle.
Mm.
And I'm such a strong believer in that, that don't underestimate your one prayer. Our
Yeah.
prayers are so powerful. And you might see somebody on the news, for an example. This is what drew my inspiration is I would have prayer requests all the time. Kelley, can you pray for my mom, my aunt? She got diagnosed, oh, car accident, whatever it is. And then I'd be watching the news in the morning, which I rarely do. I just have to say, I'm not a news person, but once in a while I'll catch a snippet and it's devastating. And then I'm
Mm.
crying because there's a little boy that was diagnosed with cancer. And so I used to pray for these people, but just in those moments when they're asking me. So I needed a place to log this in. So
Mm.
when somebody asks me, I can go directly there. And that's why I created the one prayer. It's a book in part journal, 52 weeks of journal space as well. It's not just your average journal though. Let me tell you, it's a beautiful book of why we should be praying, what prayer even is. This is for all people, not you don't have to be a certain denomination. Prayer is
Okay.
a universal language for us in what we believe in. And for me, it's God.
Yeah.
But when we take our minds off ourselves
Mm.
and we start praying maybe for someone else, it sparks hope in us. You
Mm.
just feel differently. And that's what I want for people. I want people to experience miracles. The only way we can do that is by opening our mouth in prayer, writing the names down of people that you want to pray for, and not forgetting, because I remember forgetting. And now I'm on week 4 of my journal.
Yeah.
And I just go back and I say, oh, I'm praying for this person. I hold my hand on their name. And I
Yeah.
feel so good about doing that. It's such a great feeling for me, and knowing that that person might experience a miracle through my prayer. How exciting is that?
I love it. Well, Kelley, where can people get your book, and where can people follow you?
I am on LinkedIn. That's my primary, and Instagram. And it's
Yes.
just my name, Kelley Tyan. And my book is on Amazon. And my website is Addicted to the Climb. They can find it all there as well.
Perfect. Well, Kelley, I want to say thanks so much for sharing
Yeah.
your story and your journey. And I know it's impacting people, and excited to see what you continue to do. And we'll probably have to do this in like 3 years when book number 3 or 4 is out. And there we go.
Stay tuned. Thank you so much.